Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for Thursday, August 5th. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief. Tom, we're having a rare, nice summer day in August in Washington. The people who escaped to the beach are missing good weather.
All right, Carl. Well, topic for today is Andrew Cuomo. Is he toast or not? I can't imagine that this guy is going to be able to hang on given the way things have gone for him over the last 48 hours. What do you say?
Well, you had this report that the Attorney General commissioned that found 11 instances of what it deemed sexual harassment, unwanted or advances toward women or remarks that made them feel uncomfortable, in some cases touching, one pretty serious groping accusation in there. So, and coupled with that, and related to it is it portrayed a hostile work environment where he belittled people, yelled at them, retaliated against them, sort of classic bully behavior. But there's only a year and a half left in his term, so the question is, should he be forced out or should he stay? The New York Post had a story today, said they think this columnist said he may weather it. He's resisting all entreaties. What do you think?
I think he's toast. I think the Democrats have abandoned him. It looks like in the state legislature, the assembly, they've got enough votes to impeach him. So I can't imagine that he is able to withstand an impeachment when the dam seems to have broken. I mean, in these situations, it's all about party unity. If the Democrats were with him, they controlled the state legislature. He's not going to get impeached. Then he's not going to resign. But now it looks like they're actually moving toward impeachment. What astonishes me, Carl, is that, and not diminishing in any way the allegations against him, but that it's these claims of sexual harassment that brought him down, as opposed to the 13,000 seniors that were consigned to their deaths due to his COVID policies. I mean, and then his administration, I mean, we have evidence that they covered it up. And this is somehow, it's like the backstory here. I mean, it's not even the main accusation against him that's leading to his ultimate demise.
That is a curious, sort of almost a signpost of the historical moment we're in. But I suspect if there are impeachment proceedings, that they will be part of it. What he did that can be faulted is he required nursing homes to take elderly patients who had been diagnosed with COVID-19 in the early days of the pandemic. And those facilities weren't necessarily set up to be able to care for them. And he knew that, or should have known. And then they fudged the numbers. So I don't know how many excess deaths New York had because of the governor's policies, but if it's 1,500 or 3,000, I've seen these various numbers. These are people who died. And I think that will be part of the impeachment thing. But they'll have to make the case. Cuomo's, he prides himself on being tough. He doesn't seem to want to roll over. And people said, well, President Biden called for him to resign. Nancy Pelosi called for him to resign. All these people have called for him to resign. Well, I live in Virginia, and Ralph Northam is our governor still. And a couple of years ago, Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and all the Democrats you've ever heard of called on him to resign, and he didn't do it. So I think the point here is that if he doesn't choose to resign, they're going to have to impeach him. And that's a process. He may bring out evidence in his defense. I think you, as journalists, we should have an open mind about how that would turn out.
Speaking of journalists, Carl, one of the things that has accompanied this entire saga with Andrew Cuomo, and part of the reason that I think he's demonstrated this just incredible amount of chutzpah when he's been questioned by the media, saying, who cares where they died? They died. I mean, even his defense to these sexual, harassment allegations. He shows pictures of himself hugging women and saying, well, I do this all the time, so therefore it's not a problem, has been the media's portrayal of him, right? And this adulation of him by members of the media, suggesting that he was this hero, this antidote to Trump. He was, winning Emmys for his PowerPoint presentations and, signed a $5 million book deal in the middle of the pandemic to write about leadership and, how great he was and the Cuomo sexuals and all that. And part of the story also involves his brother, who committed, I think, what was the original sin, which was bringing him on his program in the first place to interview him and to sort of, have these sort of jovial back and forth discussions about, who mom loved more and the like. And now is suddenly finds himself, he's not willing to talk about it because, well, that would be an ethical violation. And we've learned that he was, in fact, advising him behind the scenes, which is also, again, if he hadn't had him on TV, that would be less of an issue. But the fact that he had him on multiple times, and then we learned at the same time he was talking to him, privately about advising him on how to handle some of these sexual harassment allegations. This is a mess for CNN, Carl. It's a mess for Chris Cuomo. And in general, once again, we find the media has not acquitted itself well.
Well, I can't argue with any of that, Tom. Listen, if the nursing home, if he had not required these nursing homes to accept these patients, if he had done everything he said he did in his book in which he explained how he defeated the virus and et cetera, and taken the $5 million advance and given it all to charity and never sexually harassed anyone, nor bullied anyone, if he had, even in that environment, the coverage of him would have been embarrassing to the press, the fawning on him, over him. It was amateurish and partisan. I winced at the time. Chris Cuomo is another matter altogether. I agree with you that he shouldn't have had him on the show, but that's his brother, and I have brothers, and I don't fault him for privately giving his brother advice. Maybe he should have recused himself. He shouldn't have had him on the show. Certainly CNN should have behaved differently, and they know it. But the guy, it's his brother. You can stick up for your brother.
I'm not saying you can't, Carl, or that you can't advise him privately, but once you've had him on TV, once you've made this big show, calling him the Love Gov and, all of these things, that's the original sin. I mean, that's where the problem, all these problems for Chris Cuomo and for CNN, that's where it all started. And had they not done that, which would seem to be sort of an obvious thing, if you're a journalist, covering your family is an obvious conflict of interest. Interviewing a family member on national TV is an obvious conflict of interest. And they just plowed right through that bright ethical line, and everything that happened since then stems from that mistake.
Well, I agree with that, Tom. I do. But, I'll quote a Springsteen song to you.
Okay.
A guy who turns it back on his family ain't no friend of mine. And that's a song about a highway patrolman who lets his brother escape into the night after a serious fight in a bar. And it's a very poignant song, sung really well by Johnny Cash. And it's, I just want to say, when blood's involved, when your brother's involved, I think sometimes it's easy for me to understand how you could make a mistake in judgment.
All right. We will leave it there for this morning. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RealClearPolitics.
And I'm Carl Cannon, and that's been the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for Thursday, August 5th. Join us tomorrow. We have a audio-only podcast on Fridays in which we discuss the pressing issues of the week.